Welcome back to the floor plan. Matt Webber is my name. Dr. Libby Sander, hello to you.
Hello, Matt. And listeners, if you are, as many of you are on Spotify or Apple, you want to jump over to YouTube because we have a big reveal today. After
Ta-da!
how many years have we been doing the podcast?
Hmm.
A couple,
A
at least
few,
a couple,
two and a half.
maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Finally, we have the radio guy on video
Yes.
today. We need a sound effect here.
Yeah, I
So it's
know something.
not that bad, is it?
It's actually it's okay. I'm quite enjoying this new, expanded medium
Tell
operation. Yeah.
well, tell everyone your background. So Matt is sitting in this. We both look like we could be somewhere in Europe,
Yeah,
actually,
no.
because
I feel like
I'm
I
wearing
should
a
have a
jacket.
pipe. I think I need a
Yes,
pipe. A
you're in a
pipe.
very dark library.
Well, a pipe with some Christmas music and maybe some eggnog. I think that'd sort
Hmm.
of fill the thing. But yes.
Well,
Well,
I'm
in
wearing a
the
jacket
yeah.
because my house, thanks to my children, is almost for most of the year being on the Gold Coast,
Yes.
like one of those ice hotels, the ice caves you could go and stay in Europe. That's my house.
I've
So,
been in one of them. I've been in one of
what
them.
was it like?
And ice bars too in Japan. Oh, well,
Well, we
icy,
talked about that. I've
cold.
done the ice
Yeah,
bar, but I
yeah,
haven't stayed in the ice cave hotel, but I don't need to because my house is like that.
yeah,
Anyway, so
yeah.
we have
Anyway.
Matt on video today, which is pretty exciting, but he's
Hmm.
already been on holidays.
I know. I had my Christmas break early this year. And look, while I was there, Libby,
Mm,
the big reveal
mm,
about where I was in a moment. But while
mm,
I was there, I hate being that person who thinks about work when I'm on holidays. I sort of pride myself on being able to switch off completely. But I couldn't
mm-hmm,
help but think about this element of my work, our podcasts that we record together, in the context of where I was. So I went to Lord Howe Island for a week
mm,
with my wife and a couple of her friends, and Samantha was celebrating her 50 something birthday,
mm-hmm.
and what an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be there. I feel genuinely very lucky to have visited this little piece of
Mm,
absolute glorious nature.
mm-hmm.
Um, but it did get me thinking quite deeply about the sort of utopian workspace ideals that we discuss a lot. You know, the digital nomad concept that
Mm-hmm.
pops up in pretty much every second episode, it seems, at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
was it struck me, Lord Howe Island, that is, as a place uh, where I could live and work this idyllic life. Now, I'll tell you a bit about Lord Howe Island before I continue on, because it's a fascinating joint
Mm.
for people who aren't aware of it, and not many
Not many
people
of our
get to
listeners would
go.
be because
Yeah,
probably heaps of Australians barely know where Lord Howe
yeah,
Island is. So,
exactly. It's one of these little secret treasures. It's a volcanic island about 600 kilometres off the mid-north coast of New South Wales. So if you're headed east from Port Macquarie, about 600 k's for those familiar with the map, you'd come across this little volcanic island, little crescent-shaped volcanic island. It kind of rises grandly, particularly as at its northern end. It's got a curious place in Australian history. There's very much a pioneering history out there, no Indigenous history that we know of. So it's one of those places that Europeans, English folk, stumbled across and decided to make a home out of. Kentia
mm,
palms and fishing, and it was a bit of a pit stop for the whalers back in the day when that was a thing in the area. But that all sort of died away and frittered away, and it's become this holiday paradise for nature lovers these days. Dick
mm,
Smith kind of put it on the map a little bit, the philanthropist, electronics mogul, people will be familiar with, sustainability advocate, of course. He climbed one of the steep, rocky little islands off the southeast of the main island called Ball's Pyramid
mm-hmm.
at second attempt in 1979, a failed mission in 1964 before that. And his little documentary that he made is sort of still a bit of a cult favorite among the adventurous out there, the mountain
Mm,
climbers and the like. So it's a really tricky place to land
mm-hmm.
and climb and all these kinds of things. Anyway, it's got a lot of history is the point. The tree lobster too. Can I tell you about the tree lobster?
The
Just
what?
the tree lobster. The tree
What's a tree
lobster.
lobster?
Okay, so the tree lobster, it's a specific kind of stick insect, right? Now, it lived on the main island happily before
Mm,
Europeans arrived, and then, of
mm-hmm.
course, inevitably, a boat crashed on the ocean side of the lagoon on the reef there, and rats fled the ship and swam to shore,
Mm,
and they needed something to eat, so they decided these particular stick insects were pretty delicious. And for all intents and purposes, it was assumed that the population of these things, these so-called tree lobsters, had been wiped out entirely, pretty sadly. Until people like Dick Smith climbed Ball's Pyramid and discovered that the tree lobsters had recolonized another island adjacent and repopulated, and it's the only place on Earth these things exist. They have somehow climbed up the rocks, the very steep rocks, and decided this is our piece of paradise and you're not taking away from us anymore. There will be no more destruction.
Are people eating them, like in the insect eating trend that's a thing now? No. Okay.
You wouldn't eat a tree lobster. Oh, well, I suppose you could. If one really was hungry and found themselves washed onto Ball's Pyramid and there wasn't much else happening.
Abandoned.
Anyway, all of that nature stuff aside, Lord Howe Island is an exquisitely beautiful spot, as I've mentioned. No more than 800 people on the island at any one time, about half of them tourists. Stable temperatures, roughly 17 in winter, 24-ish in summer. Humidity, a constant 60 right across the entire year. Very consistent monthly rainfall, strict waste management controls. It's all about reuse and resourcefulness. Pets that have jobs. So
what do they have jobs
if you have a pet, they want your pet to be useful. So a lot of the pets on the island, like dogs, I'm talking about, will be sniffer dogs, or they will serve some sort of biosecurity purpose, which I thought was kind of cool too. Walking and bikes are the mode of transport, except for the odd ute. That is very polite to the cyclists, which is another little utopian ideal, of course. And no phone coverage really, unless you had a satellite phone. The Wi-Fi coverage is really only available in centres where people gather, so some of the hotel lobbies and cafes and whatnot. So if you were minded to work over in Lord Howe Island, you'd literally have no choice but other than to find one of these locations. There's a brewery there too, so you can have your Friday drinks if you wanted to. The pale ale was delicious. But anyway, put all of this in the pot, and it got me thinking a lot about how possible the nomadic working life could be, even in an isolated outpost like Lord Howe Island. You could make it happen for yourself. So I'm putting my hand up for the Floorplan to sponsor me next year for a year of work on Lord Howe Island.
On Lord Howe Island?
Yeah, that'll do me. I could do a year. Would you be up for that? Are you happy to dig into the Floorplan coffers and sponsor my year abroad?
Because I have all of the money that's available from the marketing budget for the media room and our podcast.
Exactly.
I have to get back to you on that one. But digital nomad. So 2026 is your digital nomad year.
Maybe. It might be.
You're going to get so bored being on Lord Howe Island for 12 months.
Really? Well, there's the seabirds and everything to look at too. I love a bit of twitchery.
We'll get seabirds for before you get bored to death.
No, I love the idea though of all the theoretical stuff that we've discussed and some of these incredible workplaces that you've described in some of the really good interviews you've conducted over the course of the last couple of years. It's sort of all, arrow-headed to this moment when I was experiencing a little holiday on an island thinking, oh yeah, you can do this. You really can do this no matter where you are.
Well, I do want to send you on a digital nomad adventure next year. The listeners who have been with us regularly will remember, we're going to try and send Matt to Charles Hoskinson's health clinic in Wyoming to get all of his injuries fixed. So I'm going to lobby for funding for that, not for Lord Howe Island. And yes, I'd like to work just briefly from a few different places next year, but Lord Howe Island is not one of them, as lovely as I'm sure it is. But look, in Wyoming, there'll be tons of nature, Matt. They've got bison. They've got many things that I'm sure you'll be. I'm sure they have birds as well.
Bison and many things. Scorpions, maybe? I don't know.
I'm not an expert on the flora and fauna of Wyoming,
but research for next time.
You can do some research on that, I'm sure, for next.
Now, Libby, on the episode, on this particular episode, pre-Christmas episode, we are talking not just about Lord Howe Island and idyllic workplace environments.
Mhm.
But we're going to have a very serious deep dive into privacy, which is something we've touched on before. Your guest today is this fellow, Fahmi Syed.
No major business is running their technology using blockchain. They may be tokenized here and there. No major asset manager is actually managing their wealth on-chain. And there's a reason for that, because all the blockchains that I've described came with a compromise. That compromise was transparency. Blockchains are a truth layer, but the truth was only possible because everybody had a copy. Everybody could see what you were doing, when you were doing it, who you were transacting with, and everything that you did was not only transparent, but transparent forever, immutable. And that transparency compromises your privacy.
Fahmi is the president of the Midnight Foundation. So we're going to hear a lot about that today. But let's sort of dive into this, Matt, talking about privacy. And one of the reasons it's so relevant is because of things like employee surveillance. So if you were on Lord Howe Island trying to work away, then, and especially now that you're on video, which you would have to be if you were this remote employee, well, maybe not for Bond because we're a great employer, but for other employers, I was talking to someone yesterday who, you've got the blink rate. If you're not blinking often enough, the camera thinks you aren't working. And so you'll get an alert, your manager will get a notification if you're not entering a certain number of keystrokes, which is all just so dystopian and completely absurd when you think about it. But this is actually the reality that we're living in. So,
I'm now, of course, facially recognizable. Libby.
We've doxed you on the podcast now.
Whenever you say blink rate, I start blinking uncontrollably too. People may notice if they're as soon as you said blink rate, I started. Anyway.
Well, should we get a lie detector as well? What's that trying to hide here? So what Fahmi and I are going to be talking about today is, we've been talking about some of these recent episodes and huge overreaches of privacy by organizations. I think there was one that was taken to court recently for recording video and audio on employees' laptops when they were working at home. They hadn't actually been told about it, but it's a huge issue in society generally at the moment. Every second day we see a data breach. You and I, anyone out there, we have to provide all of this information when we want to sign up for pretty much anything. Think about a bank account, think about the information an airline holds on you if you're a frequent flyer. So Qantas had a huge data breach recently. How many has Optus had this year?
Multiple, I think, in addition to their triple-O problems. Yeah.
Right. So, and for obvious reasons, consumers are getting very, very tired of this. And it's a huge problem for brands in terms of trust as well. And wouldn't it be great if we could have a solution that didn't require us? So, of course, we need to disclose information to be verified for things like anti-money laundering and knowing your customer. Organizations have supply chain. There are so many applications, but the drivers for this are now becoming, quite important. So there've been a lot of new acts this year. There's one in the EU on AI. You have to prove now as an organization that your data never leaked, tens of millions of euro fines for that. And so if you're a contractor, for example, Matt, for an organization, lots of things they need to check, does Matt have a criminal record?
The answer is no.
Should we be hiring this guy? But then more mundane things like, does he have a tax file number? Does he have a Medicare number? Does he have a bank account that we can pay into? Does he have insurance to make sure that we're not liable? So lots and lots of personal detail. Where do you live and things like that? So, compliance needs to happen, but wouldn't it be, it's not great that you have to disclose all of that because there's very little trust rightly nowadays as to what actually happens with that information.
Well, delivering that information involves an exchange. It's here's my information, and then you're never sure where it goes after that.
Exactly. Yeah. And then for an organization, it's also a huge cost in terms of time to gather that information, to check it, but also to then store that information and make sure that it isn't improperly disclosed. And so essentially what we're going to be talking about today with Fahmi is this next evolution of blockchain. So previously, one of the challenges with blockchain has been for good reason in many cases. It's a public ledger. We've talked about it's immutable. We've had Charles on the podcast previously, Charles Hoskinson. But the issue is that no organization will want to put their data onto a public blockchain. So there needs to be another development in this technology so that you can use rational privacy to disclose selectively what you need to and what you want to. So you can kind of turn that actually on and off. And so what Midnight actually does is, as we'll hear from Fahmi, is actually give you the ability to do that, both on the organization side and for individuals. So many applications, if you think about supply chain, if you think about health data, that's another huge area where there's rightly significant concerns about privacy. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was the first summit for Midnight, sort of launching this publicly after there was, I guess, an initial event back in June in New York, which we talked about, which I was at.
The clip I've already played is, of course, Fahmi Syed speaking ahead of one of those events. Yeah.
Yeah, just the one in London at Greenwich, which is very cool, being the home of time. So what's really exciting is for me to see from June to now just how much Midnight has grown, how much that is, the awareness is getting out there. But the conversation around this issue, the appetite to, really all of us have a right to privacy. And I think a lot of us are a bit asleep at the wheel about it at the moment. You go to Woolworths, which is a big supermarket here. They've had a lot of criticism for, facial recognition software. What data do we actually need to be gathering? How are we managing that? How do we disclose that? As individuals and consumers and employees, we actually have very little control over what information is being gathered about us. There's been recent conversations about Teams and just Teams basically tracking you now wherever you are and looking at what you're doing. And so if you're on the employer's system, then it's checking as well. It's always probably checked your email, but what's on your phone, so it's a really significant information, significant issue at the moment. And that I think could not be really a more timely conversation.
Yeah, and again, when you have this adjacent conversation at the moment, particularly about social media legislation here in Australia, international listeners may or may not be aware of this, but a significant tightening of controls in around the use of social media, restricting those under the age of 16 and their access to various social media platforms. So although you do say we perhaps have been asleep at the wheel, something that I agree with you entirely, I think we're sort of on the cusp of a bit of an explosion in interest around these kinds of issues, privacy, safety among them, access to certain things, honesty in the use of these systems. And it just feels like there's a couple of issues just swirling around at the same time that are going to go pop in the new year. So a perfect time to be considering some of these things.
Yeah, and we've got some footage here of Charles talking at the recent London summit as well about the background to these issues that we've been talking about.
So a few years back, what we were talking about was building something that was like the ultimate preservation of you. I love blockchain because it's all about trust. It's all about data being there forever. It's immutable, it's time-stamped, it's auditable, and once you have it, you can build high-trust institutions, high-trust money, high-trust voting. You can build high-trust DAOs, all these types of things. But the problem with that paradigm is you don't want to reveal everything about you forever to everyone everywhere. You want to start from a position of privacy and selectively disclose as you see fit, how you see fit, when and where you see fit to the people that you think are necessary to do commerce with. And actually, if you have that paradigm, it's surprising how many different people you can bring together.
And so today it was, it was such a great opportunity to sit down with Fahmi. He's come from the traditional corporate side of the fence, so has a really, really good understanding of what the drivers are in organizations for this, and also what are the barriers to adoption. What do we actually need to do to make a genuine shift happen in this space? Because most organizations are just so overwhelmed with everything else they're trying to manage. It's very, very timely. Fahmi, welcome to the Floorplan. It's fantastic to see you again.
Thank you, Libby. Great to see you too.
Since we first met in June, it has been phenomenal both to see the interest and the conversation around the importance of privacy and the growth of Midnight. So there's been quite a lot going on. And just last week, you had a summit in Greenwich, the home of time, which was absolutely fantastic, looked incredible.
Yeah, look, we've been overwhelmed by the response to the summit. We had over 100 partners come and not only present, but workshop together. We had one of the largest hackathons we've ever hosted, and there were some great demos, presentations, and then we had some great speakers from not only the Midnight ecosystem, but from other Web3 blockchains, from also politics. We haven't even had a real-life James Bond in the room.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Wow, that would have been very, very cool. It was the summit to be at, absolutely. So, Fahmi, I want to get into talking about Midnight specifically in a minute for people who don't really understand much about what blockchain is and the role it's playing in privacy in this conversation. But let's first talk about privacy, because there's so much going on at the moment, in digital transformation. Why do you think now more than ever is this pivotal moment for organizations to really rethink how they're handling sensitive and private data?
Yeah, look, I think we've seen a new wave of institutional adoption coming into blockchain, into crypto, but it's predominantly around trading the tokens. So as people actually go back to the core of what is Bitcoin, why did Bitcoin come about? Why was that sort of pivotal moment back in 2008, 2009 with the white paper, and actually the first mint or first production of the block, that people recognize that what it gave in terms of freedom, in terms of disintermediation, in terms of borderless transactions and a store of value. Satoshi even said in his white paper that they'd had to overlook privacy when they launched it, because decentralization, the truth layer that Bitcoin was, came at the risk or at the cost of transparency. That's the only way they could prove that ownership was and the ledger was correct. So now people are looking at it with the adoption and how things are coming, also how people use the internet, how people are being spammed with bots, AI, with adverts all over the place, why privacy and their own data is so important to them.
Mm. And how did you end up here on this side of, I guess, the conversation? What was your path to Midnight and to this intersection of privacy and blockchain?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So I spent over 20 years in the hedge fund industry. Very fortunate to work for a small organization that grew from 15 people in a room when I joined to over 300 people globally. For them, data was knowledge. Data was not only power, but data was valuable. And they were able to monetize the data that they saw, and they were able to go and execute on those ideas in a very discreet way where only they, the hedge fund, and their counterparts knew about the transactions. So when I kind of got to the end of that sort of career, I was approached by Polkadot or Parity, the builders of Polkadot. So at first, my initial thought was, no, I don't do crypto. I'm more of a traditional finance guy. But as I started looking at the actual underlying technology, what was Bitcoin? What was Polkadot? Why was decentralization an important step to unlocking not only financial solutions, but other industries, and also changing the fabric of society? I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I got to work with Gavin Wood, Dr. Gavin Wood, the guy who actually wrote Solidity, invented the EVM sort of model. So I spent 18 months with them, some great engineers, and learned a lot. Spent a lot just asking the right questions, trying to understand why it worked the way it did. And then that's when Charles Hoskinson approached me to come and work on Midnight. And then I realized that missing piece was privacy. And as I've dived into that sort of rabbit hole with the team, we recognize the value of not only privacy in just your physical world as well as your digital world, but the importance of being able to bring disclosure elements to that within the blockchain.
So let's go back then a step to these privacy challenges. So organizations have got layer upon layer of governance, of risk, of all of these compliance frameworks. What are the challenges that they are facing now in terms of privacy? Where is this pain actually showing up for organizations?
Well, you only have to look at the news in terms of the number of PII breaches, personal identity and personal information We've seen some very large instances within the UK. There was a very large cyber attack on Marks and Spencer's, a very well-known grocery and fashion brand. Also Jaguar Land Rover. And the cost of these are in the hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more. In fact, with Jaguar Land Rover, it turned out that it shut down their entire supply chain, and the information leaks resulted in people being put on furlough, which the government had to step in to cover the cost of those. So it's important to recognize that as we go about our digital experience, we are leaving fingerprints everywhere. Think about how many times you log into a website or try and get Wi-Fi at a station and they ask for your email, your name. Then they've got that information in a database and they can spam you with adverts. Think about the number of places you put your home address, your credit card details. You only need one or two of those to be exposed, and then you're at risk of identity fraud and many other issues. So what we think about is, how do you take back ownership of that data? How do you think about monetizing that or just protecting that? And there are companies out there already in sort of the Web 2 space or browser space, like Brave, who are strong partners of ours, who think about identity and privacy first.
Mm-hmm. And where does blockchain actually fit into this? So this new infrastructure layer. So tell us about what organizations do now to try and protect their data in terms of privacy, and where that's maybe failing, and what blockchain and what Midnight is going to support in terms of this challenge.
Yeah, so most organizations now are governed by some kind of data rules. So in the EU and the UK, we're governed by GDPR. There are many similar laws across the world. So around that, it's creating secure IT systems. So this centralized data is creating secure IT systems around that data, but often that data can be disseminated across many partners. So in any chain, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And that's the issues we've seen. It's not necessarily that Jaguar Land Rover or Marks and Spencer themselves have been hacked. It could be that one of their partners that they've aligned with has been, and that's where the access route comes. And as you centralize data or information and you pass that around, it creates obviously different opportunities, different sort of risk factors. The blockchain itself creates a decentralized truth layer. Ultimately, everybody has a copy, and therefore everybody can attest to whether the information that's passing, the transactions that are passing are correct, and that nobody's overspending, double spending, and things of that nature. Within Midnight, we recognize that actually that data shouldn't be transparent and actually shouldn't even sit on the blockchain. So we use zero knowledge proofs, proof of identity, proof of ownership, proof of health. And then using those proofs and the cryptography within the blockchain, we can present those to other counterparts. And those other counterparts can then participate in that transaction or open gateways to other transactions. So a simple example is, in order to buy alcohol, depending where you are in the world, you have to be either over 18 years of age or 21 years of age. So if you walk into an off license, you normally present your driving license. But that driving license gives more than proof of your age. It gives your date of birth, your home address, your name, information that you probably don't want to disclose, nor should you disclose. So what Midnight is working with in the ZK knowledge is the ability to prove that information without disclosing sensitive data, but also to then create, through the smart contract language, the ability to have selective disclosure. So we call that rational privacy, the ability to be rational about what you share, when you share it, and with whom you share it.
And what are some of the other applications that organizations could use that for, Fahmi?
So proof of identity, proof of medical data, for example. To think about medical data, there's very sensitive information. How do you pass that information around from one clinic to another? If you, God forbid, if you're taking unwell and you have to be in hospitals, often there are many doctors or departments who have to touch your data, whether it's clinical trials, whether it's medication, whether it's just assessing your well-being and your diagnosis and then your prognosis and everything after that. How do you pass that around without everybody getting hold of every bit of information, which is often what happens? So we're working with a partner right now who's looking to bring proof of that onto our network. They've got successful trials happening both in Turkey and also in California. So in two very different regions. And then there's an opportunity to take that further out to, larger medical databases where, again, the benefit to those firms, to those hospitals, to those clinics, is they can now suddenly monetize the wealth of data that they're sitting on without exposing that sensitive data.
So tell us more then about Midnight. How did it come about? What role is it playing that differs from these traditional encrypted databases and other privacy blockchains that have kind of attempted this in the past?
Yeah, so Midnight began as a research project at the University of Edinburgh and in Israel, funded by Input Output, backed by Charles Hoskinson, the founders and builders of Cardano. Charles has been in blockchain since the very beginning, whether it was Bitcoin and then as a co-founder of Ethereum and then helping launching Cardano. He looked at the different iterations. So Bitcoin was freedom and proof that decentralization cryptography works. Then Ethereum brought a layer of programmability. You can build smart contracts to perform functions. And then came Cardano, Polkadot, Solana, and other chains, which are all about interoperability and scalability. But in all of those, we haven't seen very large adoption, either from the global population or from large corporates. No large corporate has put its supply chain on a blockchain. And the reason for that is privacy, it's confidentiality, it's control in another way. When you have privacy, you have control of your domain, your identity, your information. So Charles went about using that research to build out Midnight. And the initial iteration was on an EVM chain. And it didn't work because the EVM model doesn't fully support privacy. There are points of data leakage. So they went back and redesigned it on a UTXO model. That's where you get full protection around the privacy and around how you can disclose that information. So I joined January 2024. And then earlier this year, Charles asked me to, and I was very honored to head up the foundation. And the foundational responsibility is about growing the ecosystem, growing the community, bringing partners in, bringing developers in, and also interacting with the regulators and talking to them about what we're doing. And the difference between what we have, and again, this is all about, we benefit from the work of others, whether it was Monero, Zcash, Alio. What we've done is taken the best of what they have. This is a blockchain that is built from different components. So we've taken parts of Substrate, from Polkadot. We've taken other elements from Aptos, from what we're seeing with Aleo. We have a similar sort of background. And what we've done differently is found a way to compliantly present data and metadata in a shielded way onto the network. So the tokenomics help with that, how we design that. And then once that proof is on the network, the smart contract language that we've designed helps enable gating into different transactions. So each proof allows and opens more doors into more rooms for you to participate in more transactions. But it also allows counterparties within that transaction to also bring in other partners. So you may want to share data with a regulator or your compliance team or your accountant. And this is the technology we've designed in not only how we protect the data, but also present that is where we're differentiated.
So if I'm a CEO listening to this, Fahmi, who's very new to this space, and I've got existing compliance and governance frameworks, existing audit requirements, how does it fit into that? And how would that work in practice?
Yeah, so a lot of companies nowadays have become data controllers because they own the data on their database, whether it's personal information, whether it's other types of information. The compliance requirements about being a data controller are far higher than being a data processor, where you just touch the data to process a transaction. That is costly both in terms of personnel, in terms of legal costs, compliance costs, and if there is a breach, then the fines are significant. As a data processor, your requirements are much lower, both in terms of people, legal compliance, and potential fines. So one, counterparties, corporates should think about, do they really need to own the data in order to perform this or provide the service that they need to provide? That's the first question. And the second question is, how do they
interact with their different counterparts. So take supply chain. We have an individual who came through our developer program who has been funded by the largest state in India, a state with 250 million people. Now, I know, I mean, to put that into context, the UK as a whole has 60, 70 million people. So this single state in India has 250 million people. They have 10 million criminal cases that have requirements for forensic. And what they're doing is identifying how those forensic cases flow through the different people that need to touch it. And they're following that supply chain and that forensic chain by using Midnight.
Wow.
And in doing so, they're able to create a truth layer without exposing sensitive information about people in the police force or forensics labs who have touched that. They just have accreditation that they can handle that element, and then it passes through that supply chain. And it allows that state with 10 million criminal cases a year that require forensics analysis to track that in a very compliant, efficient way. And they found since applying that less items are being misplaced or lost.
And so what I understand, Fahmi, being the data owner, is that you, with Midnight, can selectively control what you turn on and off and how much you disclose at various points in time. And you can always, immutably track that in terms of audit and other compliance trails as well.
Yes. I mean, the idea is we were looking at how do we take the best of blockchain and make it viable for large corporates to come and use. So we have many, many use cases. We're speaking about healthcare, forensics, any kind of supply chain, intelligence, and military also. Our focus in terms of our partners, although we have a wide range of partners, is in finance, where I think we could be an issuance layer, a safety deposit vault, not only for Midnight, but also any blockchain. AI, how do you prove provenance of data or use cases? Healthcare and GovTech. But there are many other use cases. What we've done is design a network that unlocks the true potential of blockchain, the fourth generation of blockchain that brings not crypto trading, but real technology infrastructure use cases into our industry.
And that's one of the challenges, isn't it? Because like you, I come from the enterprise side, and there's still a lot of people who don't know what a blockchain is, who are very wary and suspicious about the crypto space and the media headlines. So what's the biggest barrier to adoption that you're seeing? Is it technical? Is it regulatory? Is it educational? Is it cultural? Is it all of those?
There's a few things. First of all, is education. People assume everything to do with the blockchain is about trading. It's about trading crypto tokens with huge volatility where only a few money. Yeah. And what is the substance of the blockchain beyond just the token? So I think that's education is important. Not only about it's more than trading tokens, but why the blockchain actually creates a truth layer, especially between if you want to share data and information with third parties outside of your domain, outside of your company. Second, I would say is regulation, is educating the regulators, getting them to recognize that zero knowledge proofs are a good form of and a perfectly eligible form of attestation. Why is a driving license okay? Why is a proof of a driving license not okay? So our technology is constantly evolving. If you think about the half-life of technology, I was speaking at this event last night, and they were talking about who would have thought back in 1990s when I was at university that you'd be streaming movies and songs on your phone.
Yeah.
So in 20, 30 years, we've come so far. This industry, the blockchain industry, is only 15 years old, 15, 16 years old. We have created a hugely valuable industry in that short period of time. So it's about bringing regulators along with us. The technology is there. Already we're seeing large institutions, financial institutions predominantly look at how they change ownership or their financial rails using blockchain technology. But a lot of that is siloed because they build on private chains. What we're trying to do is say, you can create safe environments, enclaves within Midnight, which protect your data and your clients. in a permissionless way that allows you to connect to multiple partners.
And how do we overcome the skepticism around crypto in this space, especially in enterprise, after the scandals like FTX and the media clickbait and all of those sorts of things? Where's the best place, do you think, that we can kind of get traction on this?
Well, I think regulation helps with that.
Yeah.
So if you think about the industry, there are two sides. There's the ones who are very private and fully regulated versus the very permissionless world that, again, blockchains, Bitcoin all started with. Somewhere in the middle, there'll be a convergence. Well, there'll be a permissionless channel, which has compliant elements to it that can bring actual infrastructure solutions, technology solutions. I think if we get away from a world where we're talking less about the tokens, less about volatility, and more about use cases, that's what we get to. Last night, I was in this room, and everybody was talking about, yes, this is why we did Bitcoin, and it was a room full of family offices and investors. And I said, you're not really here because you believe in Bitcoin. You're here because this is a financial asset which has huge volatility. And when there's volatility in the financial asset, there's a huge opportunity to make money, to make alpha. And then as large institutions come in, as retail comes in through pension funds, that diminishes volatility. And then those investors go on to the next asset, the next trade. If you really believe in blockchain and Bitcoin and what it unlocked, then you should be looking at building infrastructure, building actual solutions that help the medical industry, the supply chain, defense, intelligence, whatever it may be. So I think things like that coming to the fore, developments like that coming to the fore, use cases within the financial industry. So we've seen some large asset managers put their transfer agency models onto blockchain.
Right.
That's great. That's an advancement. But you're really only going to see true adoption and comfort if you can protect the data. And that's why privacy is not only a fundamental human right, it's a fundamental digital right.
I want to talk about that human right in a minute, but you've been making a lot of great traction with Midnight in terms of those partnerships. Who are some of the partners you can tell us about that are coming on board to look at different approaches and adoption and expansion in this space?
Yeah, so we spoke about healthcare, we spoke about forensics and supply chain. We announced in Singapore the large collaboration with Google, Google Cloud. Not only are they going to come and support our infrastructure around what Midnight is and help with our launch, but again, we're working with them around how you embed the privacy element of Midnight into some of their network solutions, also with some of their partners. So recently, one of their people at Google put a blog post out around how Midnight could be a layer that augments other blockchains, other solutions that already exist. We are not tribalist. We are very happy to work with and work with developers across any chain, because ultimately technology is about consumption. Technology isn't about not a single solution, but bringing different technology elements together in a technology stack that ends up in a product for your clients. So our tokenomics, the way we have separated the capital versus the utility, allows people to just come and consume the utility, come and consume some of the privacy elements around that. So Google is a very large, well-known partner. We have partners that are bringing DeFi solutions into Midnight, and you'll see some of those coming initially through Cardano, where the Night token will be launched, and then also on the Midnight mainnet as it goes live. So that will bring private vaults, private deposits, and elements of that type that allow people to create both permissionless solutions around DeFi, but also permissioned. And by permission, I mean that you have to be of a certain jurisdiction or a certain regulatory status to be enabled to be in that. And what it does allow is then potentially large financial institutions to come in and participate in DeFi. Right now, they don't, because of KYC, KYB issue, and other elements around that. So we have things like that coming. We're speaking to a large private bank about putting some of their client deposits into Midnight safety deposit vaults, whether they can get access to other yield-bearing products in a private, confidential way. And beyond that, AI, a lot of AI partners who are, again, using Midnight to show elements of proof of authenticity around the data, the production, also confirmation that the data that the client is providing isn't being used for within the AI models. So there are lots. Like I said, we had 100 partners in the Midnight Summit. We have many more coming. But what we'll also be doing over the next few weeks into the end of the year, but also post the end of the year, is we're going to bring a lot of large infrastructure players into not only Midnight, but working with various groups like Cardano into Cardano. Things that are important like oracles, stable coins, analytics, bridges, things that have enabled other networks to flourish. We're going to bring many of those things into Midnight so we can create the bedrock for those kind of functions.
And I want to talk more about that broader issue because I've heard you speak about this several times now. I know it's something you're very, very passionate about. Often we're talking about privacy in terms of compliance and all the things we've mentioned, but this fundamental human right. Talk to me more about your thoughts on that and where we've sort of kind of maybe gone away from that in recent times.
Yeah, well, okay, let's go back to blockchain. Why have we seen such widespread adoption in Latin America, in Asia, in Africa? I believe that's where you have the most truest sense of belief in what the network does. We live in G10 countries, developed countries. We have access to the web, to services, to banking, to healthcare, and all these things. And we're not discriminated against in how that happens. Every now and then you hear stories where political figures have been unbanked because of their political views, but generally speaking, most people in a G10 developed country have access. So you don't understand what it means to be unbanked, to be denied access to healthcare because of your beliefs, your religion, your sexuality, your political orientation. And also, we don't live in countries, although we have inflation higher than it has been previously, we don't live in a world of hyperinflation. So what blockchain has allowed is people access without censorship. We talk about the freedoms of ACE at Midnight a lot. The freedom of association without permission, the freedom of commerce without restriction, and the freedom of expression without censorship. Now, they're values that we believe in, and most people will take for granted. So privacy has different meanings in different worlds. So I just want to highlight what it means to people in underprivileged countries, emerging countries, in dictatorships where it can have a significant impact. It can stifle your voice. It can stifle your access. It can stifle your freedom. For you and I, today, as I said earlier, we put our digital fingerprints everywhere. And for that, we're bombarded with adverts, videos, political stories, news. I have a friend where the husband and wife live in the same house get two very different political views of the world because they click on certain news.
Wow.
One clicks news that is very right-wing, therefore has slowly formed more of a right-wing opinion, and in the same household, his wife clicks on left-wing item, and therefore has created a more liberal left-wing view. And yet they have grown up, have lived together, have children, have a great household, and yet they've formed very, very different views because of the way their privacy, their data is exploited. And we have that every single day in what we do. Every time my wife wants, think about buying something, suddenly I'm bombarded with elements.
Ads.
Yeah. So your data is sacrosanct, and yet we give it away. Everything we do, we just give it away. When you go to a website, the first thing the cookies ask you to do is opt out. Why do you have to take your data away? Why is it automatically given away as opposed to we choose to opt in? And when we opt in, why can't we monetize that? So there are Web2 companies who are changing that and thinking about things in a different way, thinking about where data sits and where data is owned. But that privacy is very important. It does have a huge impact on your daily life, on your long-term sort of outlook, both financially, politically, and otherwise.
Do you think we've just become too tired or too stressed or overwhelmed by life, Fahmi, that, why aren't we caring more about our privacy and all of this information that we sort of know, yep, I'm clicking the cookies button, all of this stuff's out there, but we've sort of seemed to be a bit numb to it?
Yeah, so the way I think of it, and this is just my view, is the internet and smartphones have opened up the world in a way that we couldn't imagine back in the 1990s or later. And for that, what the large companies have done is to give us access for free. Often, if you think
Yes.
about it, I've spoken about this before. When I'm taking my journey, when I used to go to an office, I used to go through a major train terminal, and normally I'd make the straightest, shortest line possible between my platform and the exit. But every now and then in that terminal, people are giving away free drinks, free breakfast bars. And what you notice about human behavior is when something is given away for free, you will change your daily routine. So people, rather than walk in a straight line, suddenly deviate towards that free offering. And that's what we've done with technology. The technology has been dumbed down, it's given away for free, that we don't actually think about it. We don't think about how we're changing our behavior. Things that we wouldn't do, like I wouldn't come and speak to you. I'll introduce myself. I'll tell you what I'm working on. I don't give you my bank details. I don't give home
Passport.
address.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
right. Yeah.
So these are sensitive information that could be exploited. So, and yet in the digital world we live in, because of the freedoms and the experiences it gives us, we give that away. So what we're seeing, again, data is showing is that the younger generation, the newer generation, who've only known this, are realizing the impact it has on their physical and mental health, and are therefore slowly reducing the number of hours they spend on a smartphone on platforms like TikTok and Facebook. And it's slowly, I think you'll see as people become more and more educated and understand what it is, that you'll see a change in behavior. And why shouldn't we monetize our data? Why should large corporations get very rich, very wealthy off the back of our data? When do we get to participate? At the end of the day, a free breakfast for a free drink is not worth that.
Yes, absolutely. Could not agree more. So in 5 years from now, when Midnight is really a household name, what will be different about how organizations are handling their sensitive data?
Yeah, look, so first of all, I appreciate that a confidence that Midnight would become a household name. I almost rather Midnight become invisible. Infrastructure is about being invisible. Nobody should know how infrastructure is and what it does. We need to be an invisible, almost privacy engine for all of Web3, but also Web2. So again, not the best example, but AWS powers a lot of cloud services and internet services. And recently, an AWS center went down. And the first that most of the public realized that they even used AWS services was when their website didn't work or their application didn't work.
Xero didn't work. Emails for weeks from Xero. Sorry, we still haven't restored all our services. Half of the businesses in the world are using Xero.
Exactly. So good technology becomes invisible. It becomes unseen. And I'd love Midnight to become an invisible proof layer, an privacy engine for the whole world. How does it change how businesses work? Well, corporations start to think about what data they actually need to own. This is what data they can verifiably prove from their counterpart, whether that's a corporation or an individual. So if you think about your passport is centralized because it's issued by the country you live in, and there'll be a central office. But why does your passport, every time you want to do something, have to sit with a copy of it in multiple places? Why can't it be the ownership given to the state to you? You then can provide proof of that identity, your citizenship, without actually having somebody else own it. Why can't your medical data be then connected to that proof? So we think about different sources of information connecting together without bringing the sensitive data together in one place. And that's an important way that people need to understand how data can flow. Ultimately, everything is a flow. How do you make your life easier? How do you take out friction? How do you remove barriers? But equally, how do you remove sources of pain or risk? And again, if corporations start thinking about what is the minimum amount of data or solutions I need to have versus trying to hoard it all, then that changes the way they go from data controllers to being data processors. That reduces a significant element of cost. And then using smart contract technology that exists in Web3, exists in Midnight, they can also think about cost reduction, efficiencies. So it will take time. It is a different way. They can still find ways to monetize that information, but then the other side gets to participate in that. Life shouldn't be 0 for us, 100 for the big companies. Somewhere there is a fair solution.
I love that. Okay, some quick closing questions, Fahmi. So first of all, what is one misconception about privacy that drives you crazy?
Yeah, so most people think privacy is about hiding something. It's not. It's about choice. It's about freedom. It's about empowerment. When you are from your private state, it's a launch pad. And then you can share information, but you share it in a way that is relevant, that is rational. And so the conception that privacy is about hiding things, is about negative, nefarious activities, we just got to cut that out. The vast majority of people, the silent majority, are private. They want to have a private life, a private way of doing things. They don't want the whole world to know if they like building, I don't know, model railways, or they like reading, I don't know, vampire novels or romantic novels, things of that nature. So privacy is a right. It's not about hiding. It's about empowerment.
Love that. What's the most overused buzzword in blockchain right now?
AI. Blockchain and AI are going to suddenly solve the world. Blockchain is a truth layer. As I said many times in this session with you, it's a truth layer. So it can be a truth layer in augmenting how AI works. But often people look at new technologies and get very excited by that. Again, I would go back to what can blockchain open up beyond just AI? AI is a new fad, but go back to traditional businesses, traditional services, traditional lives. What is the technologies and solutions that Midnight can open up just by focusing on those things, as opposed to just the newest fads that come along?
Could not agree more with that. Tell us a book, a thinker, or an idea that has been fundamental in shaping how you think about privacy.
Oh, that's a good question. I think often privacy comes from, rather than books, from personal experience. So my personal experiences in terms of how my data is used, or family experiences. I've met in this journey a developer working in Midnight who had her identity hacked. And when she had her identity hacked, there was financial fraud, all kinds of repercussions, and she couldn't claim it back because her identity was owned by so many different corporations, banks, and other institutions. She couldn't get it back all in one place and reclaim it. And that journey of hers and the issues she faced brought her to Midnight, and how she can reclaim that and build solutions that work in that way in Midnight. So I think rather than books and other elements, it's looking at stories around the world over the last 20, 30 decades, whether it's whistleblowers, whether it's identity fraud, whether it's stalking, and how your identity and your appearance on social media platforms can lead to strange behavior from other people. All these experiences that either I felt individually or experienced through meeting people are the things that shape how I think about privacy, as opposed to reading about a book. Privacy is too emotive, too visceral for you to just understand by reading a book.
Yeah, definitely. And finally, in one sentence, what does a privacy respecting future look like?
Oh, that's a tough question.
You can have more than one sentence. Have as many sentences as you like.
A privacy-preserving future is about self-sovereign identity. We talk about that a lot. People often misconstrue what it is. It's about how we get to a fairer digital future. In fact, how we get to a fairer future, because all our future is digital. Let's be honest. Almost everything we do has a digital imprint. And therefore, if we can get to a fairer future where not only is our privacy protected, but our data is protected, and we get to choose how it's utilized for not only the external corporations benefit, but also our benefit, I think that will lead to, better use cases, better solutions, better mental health, I would hope, because obviously, again, we see how the internet and in its current form is so pervasive in our day-to-day life. It does have a detrimental impact on people's well-being and also people's behavior. The internet was about connecting people. And often now what we see is very partisan views in the world and very partisan behavior. And I would hope by bringing a fairer future together we can actually start bringing people back together.
I'm going to put some links in the show notes of some of the events that I've mentioned. But Fahmi, where's the best place for people to go when they would like to start finding out about Midnight, what it is and what it might be able to do for them?
Yeah. So midnight.network is our official website. So there's lots of information about what is Midnight, how you come and build and participate in Midnight, all the events that we'll be at, but also all the partners and developers working, the ambassador program. So we have two types of ambassador programs. We have Elite, which is Mandalorian for family or clan. And therefore, for our very experienced developers who've shown the ability to come into the network and support others, but also ambassador program to put other people into the Midnight Network so they can be part of that. We've just finished what we believe is the largest airdrop in blockchain history. We've seen great participation in the Glacier drop through the scavenger mine, where we've had 8 million active wallets participating. We've had already some large counterparts confirm that they have participated in the Glacier drop and will be distributing. So those numbers will only just increase. And we're now a few weeks away from phase 1 of our launch roadmap, where Night Token will go live in early December. And then in early next year, we get to the federated mainnet, incentivized testnet, and then the decentralized mainnet where full SPO block production will happen. We have, as I say, over 100 partners already coming and building. We have a line of others who want to come and work with us. We believe this is important. We believe rational privacy and cooperative tokenomics that we've designed unlocks the future. So Midnight.network is the place to come. My team is at the foundation and also my partners at Shielded Technologies, always here to listen, always here to help. We'd love to see, this being an invisible infrastructure layer to all kinds of digital solutions.
Yeah, extremely exciting times ahead, Fahmi. Fantastic to see you and chat to you again. And thank you so much for your time on the Floorplan today.
Appreciate it, Libby. Thanks for your time too.
Fahmi Syed in conversation with you, Libby Sander.
Yeah, fantastic to catch up with Fahmi again. As we said, there's so much happening in this space, and I think not a moment too soon. But I just want to say, Matt, I think you're doing it all wrong, because you're not supposed to go on holidays before everybody else goes on holidays, and then you come back and now everyone else is finally getting excited about, well, I actually finished work today.
Yes.
And you're just starting work again. So that's got to make you you're in much less of a good mood than you were when you came back on Monday.
I know. I'm actually feeling very fresh after my Lord Howe experience. It was invigorating in a number of different ways. But it's my turn. It's my turn. Last couple of years, I've had extended breaks over the Christmas period. And I think I don't have a problem manning the phones over this particular Christmas period. It's fine. Being at home, an 18-year-old who's about to, she's either leaving west or south. We don't know which yet. It'll be nice to be home and available to her over the Christmas period too. So I don't.
You're fine with it. Look, so this is season 6, and for our dedicated listeners, so we appreciate you all very, very much. We had some great stats come out this week on Spotify for creators, which is Unwrapped, which was lovely. But some of you may remember from the start of the year when we chopped off season 5. Was it season 4 or 5? I can't remember.
5. It was 5.
No, was it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Whatever. One of the last seasons by 2 episodes, because Matt wanted to start the new year with a new season. We're not doing that this time, Matt, because we've only had 2 episodes of season 6. So we will be returning with some more fabulous guests. But what are you going to be doing over the break? Are you hitting the beach for some cricket, Aussie style, on Christmas?
There'll be plenty of cricket. I don't know if there'll be beach cricket or not. Possibly, but plenty of club cricket. I'll be available for the Christmas run of games, which is exciting, and just general relaxation. But yeah, a little bit of work in the mix as well. We get a little bit of a breather between Christmas itself and New Year, Libby, which will be lovely. But how about yourself?
No, not going away this year, because you and I both went away to separate continents last year, and I did travel quite a lot for work this year. So I am extremely excited to be staying at home as much as possible and pursuing all of my interesting hobbies. So I'm learning. I said I was going to commit to learning a new language. I'm actually now doing that with a fabulous tutor. So I'm really excited, really enjoying that.
You're not willing to reveal which language it is, though, lest you be put to the test.
Exactly. It's a hard one. That's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to run into someone in the street who can speak this language and try and talk to me. I don't want that pressure. So let's just say it's a hard one, but I am really enjoying it.
No one loves a challenge like you love a challenge. It's fair to say.
Well, I'm very excited. So I'm going to be staying at home as much as possible, pursuing my language learning and all the other peculiar hobbies and interests that I do. But I think when we come back in January, we're going to talk about what the landscape of work looks like and what's changing and all of these things. But I think that it's kind of going to be a tipping point, because we know we've got the 66% of people who are burnt out, global record high. I don't want to talk about, it's just, we've talked about it a lot, but there has to be a breaking point at some point. I just think we can't continue to go on. I was on Radio National this week, pre-recording a new show for them that's coming out in January. So I just think that we can't just keep doing, we're just becoming a bit numb to it. Like, you meet people, I'm so busy, and that's just,
that 66% figure, that's it, of all the numbers that have been thrown around across the course of our conversations this year. That 66% figure, burnout figure, is the one that rattles around in my brain the most.
Really?
It really does. Well, I look in my little workplace upstairs from where I'm sitting now, and, we have a nice even 9 people there most of the time or thereabouts. And you go, well, 6 of these people are really miserable, according to the data.
Which is awful, but that is not the stat that rattles around in my head. I still have PTSD from our office romance one back for Valentine's Day.
It's really shook you, didn't it?
Well, I cannot stop walking around based on going, is it like you're saying, are you burnt out? I'm like, isn't you? Is it you and you? Like, help, get me out of here. This is why I like working from home. So yeah, that's a stat that traumatizes me. Okay. I'm hoping to block that out of my brain. But my new language learning is so difficult that I'm hoping this will eradicate these types of traumatic statistics from my brain over the holidays.
Very funny and troubling in the same breath. Hey, very grateful to our listenership this year.
We're grateful.
We've had a very, very busy and successful year, as the recent data as a stat. And the thing I love about it is that the data tells us that people are listening for a long period of time. But not only that, and we don't impress it upon any of our listeners, they're sharing the episodes, which is a wonderful insight into the way people behave in relation to the conversations we have. So really a lovely way to finish the broadcasting year on. Libby?
Yeah, thank you so much to all our listeners, genuinely. And we also we're really highly ranked, more than about 90% of other podcasts, for being like a marathon show as well, which I'm entirely going to attribute to our wonderful guests and the insights they provide, not you and I rabbiting on about various things.
Cricket injuries and the like. Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, so thank you so much to everyone. And well, hopefully when we return, Matt will not have any injuries, but hey, if you do, fantastic, because even more reason to go to Wyoming and get them fixed.
Exactly. Merry Christmas to you, Libby.
Merry Christmas, Matt. Enjoy listening to Fahmi today, everyone. I know everyone's going to enjoy that so much, and we will see you again very, very soon.